The Principality of Hutt River was a micronation in Western Australia, 517 kilometers north of Perth. Oh, how it pains me to use past tense. It was 75 square kilometers in size, and it had a population of 25 people. Now what spurred me to create this video was its death. It had this good looking flag and this seal. Now here's their flag and here is their seal, a portion of which was used on the flag. In the late 1960s, the Casualty family bought 18,500 acres of land for wheat farming. In 1969, they were planning to harvest 40,000 bushels of wheat. However, the Western Australian government wanted to keep wheat prices high and issued a quota. In November of that year, they were notified that they could only sell 1,647 bushels of their harvest. This income wouldn't even cover the hire purchase of the 2 tractors they had. It wasn't enough to profit, let alone live off of. Leonard Casualty was worried that the government would take his land as well. So they discussed it in a family meeting. In the meeting, they, and I quote, "A law was discussed which states that if the economy had been taken and a threat to the loss of the lands exists, self-preservation government may be formed." This led to Casualty issuing a formal secession letter to the government. They argued that they were entitled to a self-preservation government due to this threat. He set himself up as the administrator of Hutt River, though he worried that those who helped him would be charged with treason. So he looked at Encyclopedia Britannica and found the Treason Act of 1495. The law is titled, "An act that no person going with the king to the wars shall be a taint of treason." This law means that no person helping a de facto king against a de jure king can be charged with treason. Leonard interpreted this as any nobility and declared Hutt River the Principality of Hutt River, with him as the prince. Prince Leonard also claimed that if Australia tried to stop the formation of Hutt River, they would be committing treason against Queen Elizabeth. Prince Richard, brother of Prince Graeme, remarked, "We've always been loyal to the Queen. We never seceded from the crown." Interestingly enough, in 1977, the Principality declared war on Australia over one demand for payment. The Australian Tax Office has been on their case for income. The war ended 2 days later. As many a good micronation does, they had tax issues with their former rulers. A court in 2017 ruled that Leonard and his son Arthur had to pay $3 million Australian dollars, or 2.3 million in US dollars. That same year was when Prince Leonard abdicated to his son Prince Graeme. In the ruling, the judge unfortunately said that their claims to sovereignty had no legal merit or substance. Unfortunately, Prince Leonard died in 2019 at the age of 93. In 2020, the coronavirus caused tourism revenue to drop in Hutt River Province. Normally, they would get from 400 to 800 tourists a week, but the Principality closed its doors in January of 2020. Honestly, the economics, such as their currency, deserves a video of its own. The land would be sold off to pay the growing debt to the Australian Taxation Office. It was sadly dissolved August 3rd, 2020. Now, I could conclude by saying something about COVID-19 and its consequences, but I'd rather speak about the effect of a nation dying. All countries must die eventually, and with that, they take their history, culture, and art. Now, the Principality wasn't a cultural juggernaut, but it was still an interesting slice of history. Never forget that time makes all things insignificant. This reminds me of a personal project I had in early 2020, before the virus, in which I tried to make a list of every nation that ever existed. And as I looked for nations, I saw entire kingdoms that lasted more than 600 years and yet have no modern equivalent, and yet bear no mark on today's culture. It's saddening how you can last so long yet be forgotten so quickly. Rest in peace, Hutt River Province. It died the way all heroes do. Taxation.